Chapter 13. Baxter Dawes. Paul wanted to see a play, which was at the Theatre Royal in Nottingham that week. He asked Clara to come with him. He took his evening clothes in a suitcase and changed at Jordan's after work. At the theatre, Clara took off her coat, and he discovered she was in a sort of green evening dress that left her arms and neck and part of her breast bare. He could almost feel the firmness and softness of her body as he looked at her. He sat all the evening beside her beautiful bare arm, watching the strong throat, the breasts under the green stuff, the curve of her body in the tight dress. He somehow hated her because she made him suffer the ache of her nearness. When the lights went down, she sank against him, and he stroked her hand and arm with his fingers. The play continued, but it seemed like a dream far away from him. The reality was Clara, the white, heavy arms, the throat, her chest rising and falling. When all was over, the lights up, the people clapping, he came to himself. He helped her on with her coat. "I love you. You look beautiful in that dress," he whispered over her shoulder among the crowd of people. It seemed to him that he met a pair of brown eyes full of hate as they made their way out of the theatre, but he did not know whose eyes they were. He and Clara turned away and walked towards the station. 2 or 3 evenings later, Paul was drinking in the Punch Bowl pub with some of his friends when Baxter Dawes came in. He looked much thinner and seemed to be on a downhill path. His woman, Louis, had left him, and he had recently spent a night in jail for fighting. Paul and he were enemies, but as fellow workers, there was a familiarity between them. Paul often thought about Dawes and wanted to know him better. This evening, he offered Dawes a drink. Dawes refused with a curse and went on making insulting references to Paul's friendship with Clara. Paul tried to pay no attention, but one final remark caused him to throw half a glass of beer in Dawes's face. There was nearly an ugly fight, but the quick-thinking barman led Dawes to the door and forced him to leave the pub. Paul told Clara jokingly of the quarrel with her husband. The colour rose in her face. Her grey eyes glowed with anger. She advised Paul to carry a gun because, she said, Dawes was dangerous. Paul laughed at the idea, but in fact, a violent quarrel at the factory a few days later led Dawes to attack Mr. Jordan and ended with Dawes losing his job. Clara was indeed passionately in love with Paul, and he with her, as far as passion went. One evening, they were walking down by the river, and his mind was somewhere else. Clara listened to him whistling a sad, dissatisfied tune. She walked on in silence. When they came to a bridge, he sat down looking at the stars in the water. She sat beside him. "Will you always stay at Jordan's?" she asked. "No. I shall leave Nottingham soon and go abroad." "Go abroad? What for?" "I don't know. I feel restless. I shall not go for long, while my mother's there." "And if you made a nice lot of money, what would you do?" she asked. "Live in a pretty house near London with my mother." "I see." There was a long pause. "Don't ask me anything about the future," he said gloomily. "I don't know anything. Just be with me now." She caught him passionately to her, pressing his head down on her breast. She could not mistake the suffering in his voice. And soon the struggle within him died away, and he forgot Clara was there anymore. Only a woman, warm and passionate there in the dark. And she gave herself to him. She knew how alone he was. When Paul came to his senses, he realized he was lying on the grass. The warmth he felt was Clara's breathing. What was she? A strong, strange, wild life, breathing with him in the darkness. After such an evening, they were both very still, having known the enormous power of passion. But Clara was not satisfied. He might leave her. She had not got him. For Paul, the fire of love slowly died away. He felt more and more that his experience had been impersonal, and not with Clara. He felt a great tenderness for her, but it was not she who could keep his soul steady. He had wanted her to be something she could not be. Once, when they were by themselves, he asked her, "Do you ever want to marry me?" "Do you want to marry me?" she replied. "Yes, I should like us to have children," he answered slowly. "But you don't really want a divorce from Baxter, do you?" It was some minutes before she replied. "No," she said. "I don't think I do." Gradually, their lovemaking became more mechanical, without the wonderful high points of that first time. One night, he left her to go to the railway station over the fields. He did not have much time, and it was very dark. He was going through a gate when he saw a dark figure leaning beside it. "Paul Morel," said the man. He knew it was Dawes. "I've got you, haven't I?" said Dawes. "I'll miss my train," said Paul. "All right then," answered Dawes. And suddenly the younger man was knocked backwards by a blow across the face. The whole night went black. Then he began to see Dawes more clearly and hit him above the mouth. Suddenly, from nowhere, came a great blow behind the ear. He heard Dawes's heavy breathing, like a wild animal's. He hung on to the bigger man like a wild cat, till at last Dawes fell with a crash, and Paul went down with him. His hands pressed the other man's throat in a blind need to kill him. Then he was thrown to one side. He felt his enemy kicking him as he lay on his back, helpless. Then he lost consciousness. Paul woke gradually. He knew where he was and what had happened, but he did not want to move. At last, his willpower forced him to get up. He was sick with pain, but his brain was clear. He found a pool of water and washed his bloody face and hands. The icy water stung, but woke him fully. All he wanted was to get to his mother. On foot, as in a terrible dream, he made the journey home. Everybody was in bed. His face was raw and badly marked, almost like a dead man's face. The night was a long, bad dream. In the morning, he woke to find his mother looking at him. Her blue eyes, they were all he wanted to see. She was there. He was in her hands. "It's not much, Mother," he said. It was Baxter Dawes. He had a displaced shoulder, and the second day, his breathing also became very difficult. His mother was as pale as death, and very thin. She sat and looked at him, then looked away into space. Clara came to see him. Then Miriam came. "You know, I don't care about them, Mother," he said. "I'm afraid you don't, my son," she replied sadly. People were told it was a bicycle accident, and soon he was back at work again. Chapter 14. Life at an End. In May, Paul decided to spend 4 days in Blackpool with a friend. His mother went to stay for a week in Sheffield with Annie, who now lived there. Perhaps the change would do her good. Paul arranged to join them on the 5th day and stay in Sheffield till his holiday was over. His 4 free days passed enjoyably, without a worry or a black thought. On the 5th day, Paul ran up the steps of Annie's house, expecting to find his mother laughing in the front room. But it was Annie who opened the door. "Is Mother ill?" he said. "Yes. She's not very well. Don't upset her," Annie replied. "Is she in bed?" "Yes." A strange feeling came over him. He dropped his bag and ran upstairs. His mother was sitting up in bed. She looked at him, almost as if she were ashamed of herself. He saw her greyish colour. "Mother," he said. "I thought you were never coming," she answered brightly. But he only fell on his knees at the bedside and buried his face in the blankets, crying in pain. She stroked his hair slowly with her thin hand. "What is it, Mother?" he said at last. She said without looking at him, "It's only a lump, my boy. It's been there for some time." His tears rose up again. His mind was hard and clear, but his body was crying. "Where?" She put her hand on her side to show him. He sat on the bed and took her hand. "When did you get ill?" he asked. "It began yesterday," she answered. "You ought not to have travelled alone," he said. "As if that had anything to do with it," she answered quickly. "Now go and have your dinner. They're waiting for you." After dinner, he went into the kitchen to help Annie wash the dishes. Annie began to cry. "The pain she had yesterday. I never saw anyone suffer like it," she cried. "Leonard ran like a madman for Dr. Ansell. And when she got to bed, she said to me, 'Annie, look at this lump on my side. I wonder what it is.' And when I looked, I nearly dropped. It's a lump as big as an apple. I said, 'Good heavens, Mother, whenever did that come?' 'Why, child,' she said, 'it's been there a long time. She's been having these pains for months at home, and nobody looking after her.' 'But she's been seeing the doctor in Nottingham,' she says. 'And she never told me,' he said. In the afternoon, he went to see Dr. Ansell, a wise, lovable man. "Can't you operate?" asked Paul. "Not there," said the doctor. "Might it be cancer?" "I don't know. I would like an examination by her regular doctor, Dr. Jameson. But you must arrange it. He will charge you not less than £10 to come all the way from Nottingham." Paul agreed to make the arrangement and went to see Dr. Jameson in Nottingham 2 days later. He was friendly, busy, kind. He agreed to come to Sheffield the next day, a Sunday. Paul went home to see his father. They now employed a little serving girl called Minnie, and she was looking after him. Paul had written him a letter to tell him about his wife, but his father was afraid to mention her. They ate in silence. "Well, and how is she?" asked the old miner at last. "She can sit up. We can carry her down for tea," said Paul. "You must go and see her next week, Father." "I hope she'll be home by that time," said Morel. "If she's not," said Paul, "you must come." Dr. Jameson came on the Sunday, as agreed, together with Dr. Ansell. The examination did not take long. Arthur, Paul, and Leonard waited nervously for the two doctors to come downstairs. They were told that an operation was impossible. Mrs. Morel's heart was too weak, but it might be possible to reduce the lump by using suitable drugs. Paul had to go back to work. On the Saturday, Walter Morel took the train to Sheffield. When he arrived, he looked lost. The old man came into the bedroom rather fearfully. "How do I find you, my girl?" he said, kissing her hurriedly and shyly. "Well, I'm half and half," she replied. "I can see you are," he said, looking down on her. Then he wiped his eyes with his handkerchief and sat looking at her, almost as if she was a stranger. Mrs. Morel did not change much. She stayed in Sheffield for 2 months. At the end of that time, she was, if anything, rather worse, but she wanted to go home. So they got a motor car from Nottingham, because she was too ill to go by train. Morel knew she was coming. He had the front door open. Half the neighbours came out to greet her. Mrs. Morel, smiling, drove home down the street. They saw her smile and nod. It was a great event in Bestwood. Morel wanted to carry her inside, but he was too old. Arthur picked her up as if she was a child. They put a big, deep chair near the fire, where her old chair used to stand. When she was unwrapped and sitting down and had drunk a little wine, she looked round the room. "Don't think I didn't like your house, Annie," she said, "but it's good to be in my own home again." And Morel added in a shaky voice, "It is, girl. It is." While Paul was in Sheffield, he heard from Dr. Ansell that a man from Nottingham was in the local fever hospital. He was none other than Baxter Dawes. Paul decided to visit him. It appeared that Dawes had come to take up work in Sheffield, but after only a day or two had fallen seriously ill. Paul told him about his mother's illness and offered to visit him again when he returned to Sheffield. Back in Nottingham, he told Clara about Dawes. She seemed very upset by the news. "Is he very bad?" she asked guiltily. "He has been. He's improving now." There was a distance now between the lovers. "I've behaved badly to him," she said, "and now you're behaving badly to me. It's what I deserve. He loved me 1,000 times better than you ever did." As soon as she could, she went to Sheffield to see her husband. The meeting was not a success, but she left him roses and fruit and money. She wanted to repay him, even though her heart was not warm with love. Mrs. Morel got gradually worse. Paul knew, and she knew, that she was dying, but they kept up a pretense of cheerfulness. Dawes was now in a rest home near Nottingham, and Paul visited him there sometimes. A peculiar friendship developed between the two men. Dawes, still very weak, seemed to rely on Paul. The days and weeks went by. December came, and some snow. Paul stayed at home all the time now. They could not afford a nurse, so Paul shared the nursing with Annie. Their mother had strong drugs every night to help her sleep, and her heart beat irregularly. Annie slept beside her. Paul went in the early morning when his sister got up. Mrs. Morel's eyes grew darker and darker, her body thinner, her skin greyer. "Can't you give her something to put an end to it?" he asked the doctor at last. But the doctor shook his head. Walter Morel was silent and frightened. Sometimes he went into the sick room to look at her, then left in confusion. One evening, Paul collected all the sleeping pills there were and took them downstairs. Carefully, he made them into a powder. He put the powder into the hot milk, which he took to his mother at 9 o'clock. She drank a little and looked at him with dark, wondering eyes.
"Oh, it is bitter, Paul," she said,
making an expression of distaste.
"It's to help you sleep better,"
he said. She drank some more of the milk.
"Oh, it is horrible,"
she told him. Paul brought her a little cold milk to take away the taste. Mrs. Morel drank it down. She was sighing with tiredness. Her heartbeat was very irregular. Paul and Annie settled her down for the night. As usual, Annie slept with her, and Paul slept in the next room. He was woken suddenly by Annie's whispered,
"Paul, Paul, come and look at her."
His mother lay with her cheek on her hand, in the same position as before, but her mouth had fallen open, and she was breathing with loud, heavy breaths, with long pauses in between. They sat silently listening to the great, rough breaths. The night went by, breath by breath. Still it was dark. His father got up.
"Had I better stay?"
he whispered.
"No. Go to work,"
answered Paul. In a few minutes, he heard his father's heavy footsteps on the snow outside. He watched the snow growing blue. A grey, deathly dawn followed. Annie came in and looked at him questioningly. "Just the same," he said calmly. Soon the neighbors came with their frightened question.
"How is she?"
At 10 o'clock, the district nurse came.
"Nurse," cried Paul, "she'll continue like this for days."
"She can't, Mr. Morel," said the nurse.
"She can't."
At about 11 o'clock, he went downstairs and sat in the neighbor's house. Suddenly, Annie came flying across the garden, crying,
"Paul! Paul! She's gone!"
In a second, he was back in his own house and upstairs. They all stood back. He kneeled down and put his face to hers and his arms round her.
"My love, my love, oh, my love,"
he whispered again and again.
"My love, oh, my love."
Their father came home from work about 4 o'clock. He came silently into the house and sat down. Tired, he laid his black arms on the table. The serving girl hurried to give him his dinner. At last, Paul said, "You noticed the curtains were closed?" Morel looked up. "No," he said. "Why? Has she gone?" "Yes." "When was that?" "About 12 this morning." He ate his dinner, washed, and went upstairs to change. In a little while, he went out. Paul went to get the doctor's certificate and to tell the men to come and measure for the coffin. When he got back, about 8 o'clock, the house was empty, except for her. Her room was cold, that had been warm for so long. She lay high on the bed. The shape of the covering from the upright feet was like a clean curve of snow, so silent. With a candle in his hand, he bent over her. She lay like a girl asleep and dreaming of her love. Only the hair as it curved back from her face was mixed with silver. After 2 days, the relations came for the funeral, and the children had to welcome them. They buried her next to William in a terrible storm of rain and wind. The wet earth and all the white flowers shone with rain. Annie held Paul's arm and leaned forward. Down below, she saw a dark corner of William's coffin. The wooden box sank steadily. She was gone. The rain poured down, and the crowd in black, with their umbrellas, turned away. The burial ground was empty under the pouring rain. Paul went home and kept himself busy passing round drinks to the guests. His father sat in the kitchen with Mrs Morel's relations and cried, saying what a good woman she'd been and how he'd tried to do everything he could for her. Paul hated his father for his self-pity. Chapter 15. The Death of Hope. Paul felt lonely and defeated. His mother had really supported his life. He wanted someone to help him, of their own choosing. But Clara was not strong enough for him to hold on to. She wanted him, but did not want to understand him. If no one was willing to help him, he would go on alone. Baxter Dawes was almost completely recovered from his illness. He had found a job and a place to live in Sheffield. He was going to start work on Monday. Paul knew that his own relationship with Clara was over, and that she would go back to Dawes. She did, in fact, go with her husband to Sheffield, and Paul scarcely saw her again. There was little affectionate feeling between father and son. As there was no one to keep the home together, and as neither of them could accept the emptiness of the house, Paul took a room in Nottingham, and Morel went to live with a friendly family in Bestwood. Paul's life had fallen to pieces. He could not paint. At work, there was no Clara. There was nothing left. Everything seemed so different, so unreal. There seemed no reason why people should walk along the street, or why houses should stand in their places. The most real thing to him was the thick darkness of night. That seemed whole and meaningful and restful. Sitting alone in his room, he heard two voices in his head. What am I doing? Destroying myself. That's wrong. Why wrong? She's dead. What was it all for? Her struggle. You're alive. You've got to stay alive for her sake. Carry on for her. Go on with your painting. Painting is not living. Marry then. Have children. Marry who? Miriam. But he did not trust this answer. Always alone, his soul swung first to the side of death, then stubbornly to the side of life. The real disaster was that he had nowhere to go, nothing to do, nothing to say, and was nothing himself. He felt completely disconnected from other people. He went by chance to church one Sunday evening, and there was Miriam, a few rows in front of him. He found her outside after the service. "What are you doing in town?" he asked. "I'm staying at my cousin Anne's, just till tomorrow." He invited her to come back to his room for supper. They took the bus, and scarcely spoke until they reached his place, on the edge of town. In his room, supper was laid. Paul made coffee. Miriam told him shyly that she was going to train as a teacher at Broughton College. "I suppose you're glad," said Paul. "Very glad." "Well, you'll find earning your own living isn't everything." After supper, they sat by the fire facing each other. "You've broken off with Clara?" Miriam asked. "Yes." "You know," she said, "I think we ought to be married." "Why?" "You're wasting yourself like this." "I'm not sure," he said slowly, "that marriage would be much good. You want to put me in your pocket, and I would die there. What will you do instead? She asked.
I don't know. Go on, I suppose. Perhaps I'll go abroad.
There was a long silence.
Will you have me to marry me?
He said, in a very low voice.
Do you want it?
She asked, deeply serious.
Not much,
he replied with pain.
And without marriage, we can do nothing.
No, she said, her voice like a deep bell.
No, I think not.
He went with her to her cousin's house and left her there. As he turned away, he felt the last foothold for him had gone. The town stretched away to the distance, a flat sea of lights. Behind him lay the country, with little points of light for more towns, the sea, the night, on and on. On every side, the enormous dark silence seemed to be pressing him into nothingness. And yet, though so small and unimportant, he was not nothing.
Mother,
he whispered, in sharpest pain.
Mother.
She was the only thing that helped him to remain himself among all this. And she was gone, a part of the earth again. But no, he would not give in. He straightened himself and closed his lips firmly. He would not take that direction, to the darkness, to follow her. He walked towards the distant noise, the glowing golden lights of the city. Quickly.